What's up, my weirdos? It is yet again time for another incredible interview. This week, we are interviewing the CEO of Orem, Stephany Kirkpatrick. Stephany has an extensive background. She was a financial planner. At one point, she was working for SoulCycle, and now she is the CEO of a instant ACH company. By that, I mean she is figuring out how people can start receiving their money instantly instead of having to wait the 2 to 3 business day norm that is the standard in financial institutions and banking generally. So I'm really pumped for you guys to hear this interview. I think there are lots of good nuggets as to not only the banking side of things, but really the explanation in terms of how we bank as people. So I'm really excited for this interview, guys. So let's go. Hey, team. We are here today with the wonderful Stephany from Orem. Stephany, welcome to the show.
Hi, ladies. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. So we are so excited to interview you. We're also here with, obviously, my lovely co-host, Megan. So, Meg, should we just kick things off?
Yes. Hi, Stephany. Welcome, welcome from New York.
Hello,
Um,
hello.
yes. Okay. So we always kick it off with this first question. In our mind, every woman we interview is a heroine in their own regard. That's you. And we'd love to hear a little bit more about your heroine's journey, like thus far. Some big pivotal moments in your life that have
Oh
gotten you to who you are.
gosh.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, let me just say I don't feel like a heroine. I feel like a 40-year-old mom driving a Volvo in the suburbs, trying really hard to like hold it all together. So let's just start there. Reality check. But the journey is a really interesting one. I started my career as a certified financial planner, really passionate about helping other people figure out how to do more with what they had financially. And that has just never left my life, right? Being a CFP is an evergreen sort of part of who I am, but it's ultimately led me to want to solve very different, very interesting problems in my life, always tied back to the thesis of the American wallet and the fabric of our economy and helping now ultimately hundreds of millions of American households get hit with less fees, have access to their income and their own, liquidity instantly, move money instantly. So it's something I think about a lot. My journey's been filled with lots of things, including an incredible job at a company called LearnVest, where I had a chance to work for my first female founder and female boss at the time, Alexa Von Tobel. And that was just a pivotal part of like looking at another woman who was fearlessly blazing a path now 10 years ago in tech in New York, which was sort of a smaller scene, different than what it is today. And just taking that sort of like wild look at an opportunity and saying, we're doing it, and inspiring me and empowering me, frankly, to solve problems with her as her right hand partner. So that's one big stop in the journey. Another big stop in the journey is actually going to SoulCycle. When we sold LearnVest to Northwestern Mutual after a number of years of running the post merger integration, which also probably counts on that journey. Um, I woke up and said, I don't want to be a middle aged life insurance executive. And I could be, and it's exciting. And I love Northwestern Mutual, but I want to go work for a woman again. And I want to go work in a category where I've never worked before, but that I care deeply about. So I went to SoulCycle and I worked for Melanie Whelan, who was phenomenal to work for. And again, just like a really rich culture of like a woman at the top doing it all, not perfectly, let's be clear, no one is perfect, and kind of just giving me the inside look and the inside track to what it's going to be like as I keep advancing both my personal life and my professional life. Becoming a mom is a big part of that journey. So I have 2 little girls. um, Quinn, my oldest, is in first grade, and Ella, my little, we call her the crazy one, troublemaker, is finishing her last year of nursery school. So it's been a pretty interesting journey. Finally, it ends with getting an inspiration check from Inspired Capital when I probably wasn't ready yet in my head, but became ready quickly to take the leap of faith to found Orem. And here we are.
I am so happy to hear there were so many different moments in your life that have been inspirational to you, Stephany. So I'm hearing like becoming a CFP, working with SoulCycle, becoming a mom. Would you say that any one of those moments, or maybe something more specific within those times, that you would call your tipping point to get you to really start Orem? Like, was that the Inspired Capital check, or did you already have a moment prior to that?
So I've thought a lot about this problem of instant money movement for a long time because as a financial planner, you see people get advice. You see like that it's possible to get people excited to pay off student loans faster, save for a mortgage, right? Pay off credit card debt. Like, we're not talking about buying second and third homes or yachts. We're literally talking about real life stuff that like each of us is dealing with that actually, frankly, feels kind of like a secret that we don't talk about, right? Income disparity, just figuring out how to manage money. It's just not something that's foundational. And frankly, it's really hard and scary for women. So that's always been just the thing that, like, for my whole life has been the reason I want to show up every day. And the idea for Orem actually originates from like, well, when we give great advice, why don't people follow it? It's not behavior change. That's actually not the problem, right? It's the action that it takes and the time it takes to move money and to learn that somebody doesn't want to put cash in a high yield savings account to earn more money. Like, you can get it actually at H&M Bradley, because on Saturday, if they have an emergency, they can't get it back to checking instantly. And that people actually choose to take the suboptimal path financially because their fear is driven by a broken system, a system where money can't move instantly. And if we had done real-time payments like a decade ago, the way the UK did in other countries, anyone that has been for the last 10 years in the US going to payday lenders, there's $6 billion of money that could have been in the hands of American households that's gone to profit to payday lenders. So it's problems like that that I've always been obsessed with. The actual like tipping point was definitely the inspiration check. And then after the inspiration check, really understanding that like the problem isn't up here at the top, it's all the way down in our financial services stack. It's inside the infrastructure of a 50-year-old clearinghouse system that moves money in an antiquated fashion, and an antiquated data consortium that was built when check cashing was like the problem to be solved. And we're like in an instant economy and money didn't keep up. So there were a lot of different sort of moments in time where the problem got more visible, richer, more powerful. And then it's like that final tipping point to be like, you know what, quit your job and go do it. And so, yes, the inspiration check mattered. I will say, credit due to my spouse, my husband, who's incredible, that he said, go do it. I'll be the one that gets offline at 6 o'clock now in COVID times and doesn't commute, and cover the nanny dash that we used to have to do from this city. And I'll be the one that can bring you dinner when you're doing an all-nighter to fundraise. I'll be the one that can do X, Y, or Z. Go. This is a big idea. It's a big opportunity. And I think you always have to remember that, like, as much as you put in the man hours to be here to show up, to do all the hard things, you can only do that with a really great childcare system, with lots of help from your family, your friends. It does take a village. And I think that's a huge part of the tipping point for me too.
I love that. And a lot of what it's based in is a lot of what Syra has taught me over like this past year and a half, which is financial literacy and how important it is, especially for women, to be smart about your money. And I feel like I'm getting smarter by the day. So I would like to say I'm part of your club, but not yet.
You're in it. Just wanting to be smarter gets you in. You're in it.
So how do you feel like you have two young children, Quinn and Ella? Mm-hmm. How do you feel like, or what are some of the conversations you might be having with them as they get older? Like, what are some of those precedents you want to start setting kind of with the next generation?
Oh my gosh, there's so many different things as you raise kids that you think about: manners, politeness, caring, gratitude. It's just an endless journey of taking a newly formed human and forming them to have values from the very beginning, and working with them and not forcing on them, but really guiding through how we live our lives and through our values, what they're going to grow up and be excited about, be proud of. And they say things to me, it's really interesting, that I don't think I'd realize, right? Because we weren't working from home previously. Orem's been built entirely during COVID. And so we're a fully remote workforce. There's 75 of us in about 22 seats. And about 46% of the company is female, and about 48% is young parents. So the kids are growing up watching me build a company, and they say, Mom, I'm so glad you closed the office, because now you can be here more often. And they'll come screaming in like after school and possibly interrupt things. They're not here today, so they won't interrupt us. And they'll get on camera, and it's really amazing for them to understand what it's like to see their mom work, right? Because normally I would have left the house, and at this age they wouldn't know what I was doing. So I think that part's really cool. They know Orem, they know the name, they can talk about it. I find now that they're getting a little older, we've started to introduce like piggy banks. Like, it's very simple, but like, what is a coin? Why are they different? What is money? They're already at an age where they can just say, Mom, order that. Mom, can you get me a new one? Mom, it broke. Can I have another? And in our lives, you can just ask Alexa and it will deliver, right? Like, there is a need to kind of explain to them where it comes from, how we earn money. So some of that is starting to form. But I think the most important thing that I think about is kindness, gratitude, equality. Like we don't isolate others. We don't want to make someone else cry or feel bad. And like they're so young, they don't know. Sometimes they only really think about themselves. So how do we think about, how do we really think about community and giving back? And so there's lots of little things that we spend time on as a family. It's definitely a long-term journey to instill these values.
I love hearing all that. Oh, sorry, Meg, I know that you probably want to say something too. I love hearing all that. I'm a big fan of the idea that representation really matters and being that role model for your kids and talking to them about like, basic economic values in addition to like human values, I think is so critical and something I'm still mentally kind of toying with. Like, what is the right age to start introducing like mommy has to make money and figure out how to pay those bills. Like the house over our head is not, just present, right? That's not just like a gift that the world gives you.
That's right.
Yeah, that totally resonated with me and sent like a little bit of a chill down my spine because it's like, at what point do you have to start explaining that? Because when does that concept start to make sense, right? Like things don't just appear out of anywhere. So going back to like our series subject matter, which is really about building a bank and understanding how to build a bank, infrastructure is one of the most vital aspects of essentially building a bank. So can you explain to our listeners, Stephany, that might not necessarily fully understand what Orem is, exactly what Orem does and how it's so significant to what people are trying to do?
Yes. So I can make this easy because what we do is not something that you're going to see every day. You're never going to see the Orem brand on something. You're not going to log into an Orem app. You're not going to go to the bank and pay with Orem. But when you do all of the transactions in your financial life, Orem is somewhere behind the scenes making it happen. So here's how I think about it. When you get a package right now from Amazon and it shows up instantly, same day, when you go to open it, you don't check that it came from UPS or FedEx or DHL or that it was USPS, like, right? You actually don't look at it. You just rip it open and on with your day.
Exactly.
Amazon has all the technology to figure out how to take 5 to 10 different bifurcated final mile delivery providers and get that package to you instantly. They manage risk, they manage speed, they manage costs, right? All that. That's how we at Orem think about being the infrastructure behind a bank, behind a fintech to help move money. We have a single unified API. That's just like a simple technical word for, technically sending something to us and making it easy. And through that API, our system manages risk, uses a proprietary data network that has billions and billions of data points that we've been building into it over the last 18 months as we've been building the company, and has all the different forms of money movement, wires, ACH, and there's 3 flavors of that, card rails, real-time payments, coming soon, Fed now when it launches. And now we're starting to think about and work on stablecoin and settlement on the blockchain. And that's just like Amazon. You want the money to arrive instantly. We make a transaction happen 24/7, 365 at night, on the weekends, holidays. So if you want money out of your account back somewhere, we can do that instantly. You want money into capital markets instantly, we can do that. You want to pay off your credit card instantly, we can do that. So all the different mechanisms to move money, we power, and we have this incredible intelligence layer, just like Amazon does, to figure out how to do it. And that's our secret sauce, right? You feel like it's instant, it is instant, and we make it happen.
That is so cool and such a critical part. Like one of the first conversations Megan and I had was her telling me, she was like, I tried to ship money from point A to point B and I don't know where my money is right now. So I love that Orem's fixing that. And Megan, I don't know if you remember that conversation.
No, I 100% remember that conversation. Syra, I was with a little bit of background. I was with one bank for like 16 years and Syra goes, what's your interest? And I was like, what? And it was awful. And so we went on this whole journey of me dating banks and whatever. And so I was transferring a big chunk of my savings into a brand new bank, which all is very frightening for me. I'm a very open and loving person, but when it comes to money, I'm very insecure, like most people.
It's very common, common.
And it was transferring like a big chunk of money. And I was like, where is it? And Syra's like, oh, it'll be there. I'm like, but when? So Stephany, when you say it's like, don't worry, you can get your money when you want it. I'm like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. Like people are working behind the scenes to make sure this is as fluid as fluid of a process as possible. So we don't have to stay up all night wondering, where's my 10K or whatever.
Exactly. I mean, the friction in the system is massive. And listen, it was there for a reason, which 50 years ago, when we started moving money online on the internet, via ACH, not even on the internet back then, it was necessary to manage risk by holding on to the money for 3 days to get information. In our system in the US, when you do a transaction on ACH, which is $62 trillion of money movement, 28 billion transactions a year, growing by 8%, so getting bigger every year. When you do that transaction, the data about whether or not there was money available for settlement comes in 3 days later. So the bank has no choice. They don't have the tools to release it to you sooner. They have to sit and wait. The system is fundamentally broken. And so our technology lives all the way down deep, deep, deep in that part of the world to be able to course correct and add the right intelligence so that when you request the ACH at the time you request it, not 3 days later, there's information, kind of like a credit card swipe. And then there's actually new ways to move money, and we sort of power both. And it's so common. I just moved money out of a brokerage account recently, and it took 7 days. What if I had needed that? Like I know I need to plan ahead, but why is that okay? Why are we okay? We're complacently saying that's okay. I mean, it's not. It's really fundamentally not. So, Megan, the experience you just described resonates completely with me.
It also brings up another insecurity I have about money, and I'm sure you'll love this question, about security. Like the infrastructure, right? I need to make sure that the infrastructure, I need to not worry that someone might have my social security number to check my credit so I can open a bank account. I can do all the things. But once my money is there, I feel pretty confident now. Maybe some people don't. What are some of kind of like the security protocols like companies like yours have to go through to make sure you're up to par, like constantly, and what you can say?
So this is a great topic. There's some folks on my team that would talk your ear off about it. And it's actually a huge part of the industry. There are startups that have spun up to focus only on information and data security. It's such a big opportunity. Think about it, sort of in terms of like certification, right? So to become an accountant, you have to be certified. To become a financial planner, you have to be certified. Well, for us to move money, you have to be certified. So there are regulatory aspects, there are legal aspects. And there are a variety of different things we have to do to secure our information security policies, data storage and data governance, what's called access controls. So who can actually run a query, who has access to your data lake, who can get into your system and look at information. What happens when you fire an employee? And again, we're remote, right? I can't take away the laptop in person. How do we wipe a laptop in 3 minutes or less? Those are all the various kinds and forms of what goes into information security. And then there's your system-wide controls to prevent hackers from getting in through your APIs or from fraudsters and bad actors sending mass volumes through your system and retraining your models to actually look for the wrong behaviors, right? So there are many, many, many protocols, but most of them boil down to certifications that come from third parties that we have to do regularly and audits that happen. So most of our partners have in their contracts audit requirements, and they'll come in and they'll audit our protocol. So we have to prove it once, but then we also have to maintain it, right? So those are the kinds of things that should give you and the rest of the world listening the confidence to know that like we're held to a very high standard, right? And our partners like JP Morgan don't mess around. So this isn't like a bunch of cowboy banks backing Orem that like maybe we're checking the box for security and compliance, maybe we're not. We work with only the best banks, and they hold us to a very high standard. And I will say, like as a startup, actually it's hard, not because it's work that can't be done, but because you're always deciding where do we invest. And we said from the very beginning, before we write a line of code, we're going to work with the absolute best banks in the industry, which we are. Silicon Valley Bank, JP Morgan, just some incredible folks. And we're going to absolutely knock it out of the park with our compliance program. So we have a general counsel, chief compliance officer from Stripe, folks that have done this before in the payments industry. And we hold ourselves to a really high standard because we move money for a living. There's no room for error, right? So there's a lot that goes into it. Usually if we're signing on a new partner, they're going to send us a document that's probably somewhere between 1,500 and 3,000 unique questions about our data privacy, data security, security control. Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
Oh, gosh. No, that's really reassuring. Many people, many of our listeners are just trying to get financial literacy themselves by listening to this or signing up for courses or what have you. And so thank you for kind of pulling back the curtain and being like, there's a lot that goes into this. And, potentially one of the things that probably keeps you as an owner and founder up at night, which is security, and money is so important to people. So no, I appreciate that. That sheds a lot of light for me too. So thank you.
Of course.
And I'm gonna chime in here because Stephany knows this, and I don't know how often I talk about it, but I was actually the person that helped onboard Orem to HM Bradley. So when she was talking about all those stellar banks, I was like, yes, of course, we're right up there with JP Morgan, Silicon Valley Bank. So Stephany, this is one that I'm super curious about because I know you have such a wide breadth of knowledge in the banking industry. Where do you see the most opportunity for disruption and for change within the banking industry?
I mean, I think about this all the time, and I think there are a myriad number of things that we will innovate on in a what I call post real-time money movement world. And so I think the most innovative thing we can do today is advance the ball on everything we've been talking about, which is make it move instantly. Because then you actually don't need early wage access companies that charge you a fee, which is essentially a very cute and very nice way of doing payday lending, right? You don't actually need that if you could just get paid in real time. Well, so what's holding us back from that? What would be the next generation of innovation in banking that we would come up with? What I think it looks like, and I hope we build both at Orem and just in the world, is that first we solve that money moves in real time, right? That's like foundational. That's what we're working on today. But second, I think this is where it gets super interesting. What if you had a set of rules? Either you created them, a financial planner gave them to you, and it said things like, every time I spend $50 on my credit card, start automatically repaying $10 a day. Don't even wait till the billing cycle. Don't wait to see if I have money left over. Automate it. When my account balance is over $1,000, sweep 20% over to HM Bradley, so I'm earning 3% interest, and sweep 15% over to my highest interest rate debt, and that's always changing. So just take care of that for me, right? And then on the first of the month, sweep back $10,000 that's in my higher yield account so I can pay my mortgage, whatever the case may be. It's that constant sort of orchestration of your financial life. What I call it is like the easy button for your financial life. That's the biggest innovation. Because, well, like the three of us on this call are probably not doing that just because we're busy. Hundreds of millions of Americans are doing it because they only have pennies, they only have quarters, they only have small dollars to put towards debt repayment. What if every time you got out of an Uber and you tipped, 25% of that transaction went to pay off the Toyota loan directly? Those are the kinds of things that could be absolutely automated and people could get ahead financially. We now have fractional share investing, which, even up to a couple of years ago didn't exist. So you don't have to have $3,000 to open a mutual fund. You can put in $1. So how could we help people who only have $1 today, but they have $1? And if we leave it in their account, they're not going to have $1 tomorrow. Put that dollar towards something that builds wealth and close that wealth gap. So that for me would be like, we've arrived. We've solved what we came to solve. That's the thing I spend a lot of time thinking about.
Oh, that really hit home when you're like, the Uber tip. Go off to pay off the loan on the, Toyota that they own automatically.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't leave anything to error. And it just kind of helps keep people moving forward and working. Many people that do work or Uber, that might be their third job, or they're just trying to make ends meet. So
100%. And listen, we're human. No matter where you work, no matter how much you're paid, when the money hits your account, all the good things you could have done with it, you're like, maybe, let me think. And that it's manual requires this intervention. And now time is the disadvantage, right? Just think about putting money into the market. If you wanted to move money today into an investment account, it would take 5 to 7 days. So like the thing you wanted to do, the upside moment, it's gone. So it really doesn't just isolate to like, let's help, Uber drivers. It's really, truly across the board. Every American household could have more if they had automation. And that's kind of like chapter 2 for us. So today, the way we think about that is working with partners like Monarch Money, who are building sort of advice automation so that we can power that they could move money. And so that would be a place where I think like if you're looking for sort of financial literacy, you want to track money, you want to get great advice, that's an incredibly good place to do it. And they're agnostic to where you keep your money. So keep it at HM Bradley for good rates. But you have this place where you can actually go learn, you can be educated. There's world-class certified financial planners that work behind the scenes building the product. And that's the kind of stuff that just gives you like that extra edge of understanding what's actually going on with your money.
That's so powerful, Stephany. And like, it's something that I watch all the time in H.M. Bradley, right? Like, to train someone to actually save their money, that is such an incredibly difficult task, right? Like, just like you were saying, like, the money comes in, and like, to actually let it stay there, you really have to be like hitting certain income levels to even not be living paycheck to paycheck. But then on top of it, you have to have some form of self-discipline that is well beyond just seeing it inside of your bank account. So super fascinating to hear your perspective on that, just because of the products that I work in. So I love that. So on to our 4 questions for our mini series on building a bank. If you wanted to give advice to someone who wanted to start a bank, what advice would you give them? Where should they start? What is that initial, here's how I would build that infrastructure?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question because a bank, at least a digital bank, gets born every day. And I know this because many of them come to us right away, knowing that they're going to have some sort of challenge in moving money or managing risk, and they want a partner. So, the first thing I would do is say, understand the landscape, right? This isn't like the equivalent of just building a piece of technology. That's going to be a foundational part, but banking has real requirements, has really sort of deeply entrenched regulatory things that you have to comply with. So, and to get a bank program approved is not easy, nor should it be. So, a lot of your work in the very beginning, you could do this in months. You can't do it in weeks. It won't take years, but in the first few months, we'll be really getting your bank program, your compliance thinking, getting like all the foundational pieces built, so you can go actually work with a banking as a service provider technology solution to help you get matched with a bank. And this is where I think companies like Terra are doing an incredible job of taking a bunch of banks who want to do business with fintechs and a bunch of fintechs who want to build banks and helping them get matched together and building the technology. But it doesn't just stop at building technology. It really does start with like understanding the regulatory world you're going into. You're going to be a regulated entity forever. Does that affect how you're going to market? Does that affect what kind of customers you can have? What's the rules by state? What state are you in? Just know that, research that. It's all knowable, right? That's all findable. But start with a really good knowledge base because it's going to give you an advantage as you choose where you're going to make an investment. So I think about those things. I also think about cash and capital reserves. What are you going to need to raise if you're fundraising to build a bank? How much money will you have to put on reserve with a bank partner? How much do you think it's going to cost to build the technology? So there's definitely some financial planning, to use a pretty understood word, aspects to just planning out like building a bank. And again, this has been done before. Digital banks are being built every day, so it's certainly findable information. And then I would think a lot about the target market and the customer. What's the value prop? What's the unique thing that you want to do? And I think what's super, super, super interesting is the way that the sort of thesis on banking has changed from, I need to be able to walk into a location and look eye to eye to the teller or sit down with a banker or have a safe deposit box, which I'm just trying to remember. Do I have one? Probably. Where is it? To like, I need to literally interact instantly and be able to pay for my bank and do all these other things. So like, then I think you're starting to think about defining your value prop. And that's where the competitive research comes in. I have like probably about 30 different bank accounts open right now. Because I try everything in the market. Every customer we work with, I go through onboarding. And I'm just a curious human. So I think that curiosity needs to be there for you. Like, who else is out there? What are they doing? What's working? What is onboarding? Who are the vendors I need to plug in? And really just getting sharp on the landscape. And then you go build after all that's done.
Megan, did you have a little bit of heartburn when she said she's got about 30 bank accounts open? Because I think I estimated that I was between like 15 and 20. So...
A little. I mean, I've started to explore just and get more curious too, because I work in product development, and I'm like, what are these people doing? Like, how are they innovating? And what I have found, like from the fintech industry in general, regardless of knowing Syra, is that they're really blowing up the atmosphere and saying like, no, this is the way it should work, and we'll let everyone else follow, which I love. But it's nice to hear kind of the due diligence behind it, like landscape, cash, value prop, love that, competitive analysis, and then an ever-going curiosity of what is going to move the needle. So I love that. I'm going to use that. Not to build a bank, but maybe in some other things. Okay, so next question for you. What advice would you give to someone if they wanted to get involved in cryptocurrency? What would you say?
Oh, this is a really juicy topic because crypto is top of mind for us at Orem today for a variety of reasons. Just because, again, I think the landscape for moving money has quickly shifted. And crypto really kind of fits into two categories. It's one, the sort of investment side of it, which is how it's been primarily used today. And then it's how does crypto and crypto like technologies, blockchain settlement, including stablecoin, which is really US dollars digitized on the blockchain. So it's different. It's going to be more, sort of stable, pegged to our fiat currency. How are those two things similar and different? And what do you do with one? One's maybe a form of payment. One's more like an investment. So I think if you want to get started in crypto, I think certainly there's like no easier thing than just like carve out $100 and go buy $10 of 10 different coins if you can, and just like actually just put your money to work. But how do you actually decide which ones to buy? Listen, I think the market has certainly a perspective, and so research again is always kind of a first principle for me. I think what the FinTech Today team is doing is great, and they just launched a crypto newsletter, Crypto at Night, I think I want to say it's called.
Crypto Tonight.
Crypto Tonight, thank you. So Ian
Yeah.
Carr's perspective and research is a great starting point for just getting smart. And I hate to say it because I'm not all over the internet, but Twitter is certainly a learning ground of just understanding, what actually is this thing, right? Stocks and bonds, mutual funds and ETFs. Maybe you don't know exactly what that is, but you've heard about it before. And crypto is now like a categorically different kind of investment. Spend a little bit of time just understanding categorically what that is and recognize 100% of the money you put into this crypto investment is at risk. Just like 100% of the money you put into the stock market's at risk, but the risk is different. And so I would just always counsel someone, don't play with money you don't have. Make sure you have an emergency savings. Make sure you are buying life insurance and disability insurance and you are paying off debt. And then if you want to get interested in crypto, cool, right? But do first principle foundational things, basic financial security, or you're going to wake up and be like, wow, I got excited about crypto and I put money into it. Now I'm nowhere on everything else that like actually runs my life. So carve out $100, like experiment, carve out 1,000 if that's what you have. But be very thoughtful about those dollars and, I think research where it's going to go and also understand at a certain point how you may be forced to keep it in cold storage and what is that, and just start to get prepared. Because I'm going to say this is a lot of reading. And again, I think, the FinTech Today team has put together some great resources as a starting point.
So I'm hearing two things. First and foremost, a shout out to FinTech Today, which I believe is probably both of our favorite newsletter. And I love the Crypto Tonight. I think what Ian's building is like so integral to education of the fintech space generally. So completely agree with you there, Stephany. The other thing, and I wonder if you've experimented much with this, but like for me, I actually had more stress when I first started experimenting with crypto. And I realized like there are all these different steps in terms of like, here's how you import money. And then what's terrifying is like, I have to view on Etherscan that my transaction's like pending in my wallet for whatever given period of time, or like whatever crypto platform that I'm transferring money from, which I think Megan, you and I need to have an episode about wallets generally and cryptocurrency at some point. But like to me, that's more terrifying because I am so such a noob in that like entire realm as it pertains to cryptocurrency that I'm more scared about a transaction where they're like, oh, it's instant. And I'm like, it's not really instant. It's definitely faster than an ACH, but it is not instant in terms of wallet transfer. So like when I'm transferring several $1,000s from one place to another, it is not fun on the blockchain. And it's frankly, I'm a curmudgeon and I'm just going to say it. It is very complicated. So it's just something that's super topical for me right now because I've been watching a whole bunch of stuff in DeFi. So that really resonated. And I think it correlates perfectly with Orem, frankly. So Stephany, you kind of touched on resources like FinTech Today in terms of education surrounding finance and fintech. Where else would you recommend people go to if they want to educate themselves better about things in the finance world?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Let me think for a second about sort of my like favorite places. I mean, it's going to sound a little bit banal, but there's actually an organization called the Financial Planning Association, and they exist literally to provide education and resources to talk to financial planners and therefore educate yourself on like what is financial planning. And the reason I start with financial planning is yes, obviously I'm a CFP, but also it's about like foundational knowledge of what goes into a financial plan. Because what happens is a lot of people want to research a mortgage, or they want to research investing, or they want to research a stock, or they want to research crypto. And that's great. Individually, you want to understand those things, but collectively, how are you thinking about the totality of your finances? So I think there's some great resources there. And then again, I'm a huge fan of Monarch Money, just because I think that, when you link your accounts and you can actually see your own money flowing in real time to understand your budget, how much is being spent, where it's going, while that is a look back, and you do have to like think about the change you may want to make going forward, it's information you probably don't have when you log into just one bank. Well, maybe I'm crazy and I have 30 bank accounts. That's only because I'm a curious product tester. Most people have about 5 different financial institutions, investments, credit cards, right? 401ks, you name it. And you need an aggregated view for that. So I would say that's also a really important place to, be able to say like, what's going on collectively, globally with my financial life. And if you don't know, maybe you don't need to know down to the penny, but if you don't have like a general overview of essentially your net worth, makes it very hard in isolation to get educated on any one thing, because you're going to go down the path of mortgages and find out that there's something called a debt to income ratio. And so then you have to think about, well, what does that mean for me? Well, let's go back up, right? I also think Credit Karma is a great place. I think NerdWallet and Credit Karma together are, great educational resources. Again, understand your credit score. I know that sounds so basic, but it's like the key. It's kind of like your SAT score. Are you going to get into college or not? Your credit score is going to determine, at least right now, TBD if alternative credit really takes off, as I hope in some ways it will. It's going to determine access to a lot of things. It's going to determine actually if you're going to be able to apply for an apartment and get the lease approved. It's going to determine if you can get a car loan. It's going to determine if you can get a personal loan, a credit card. Is it in good shape? Is it in good health? Do you even know what it's calculated off of? What is credit history? What is debt to income ratio? So again, there are like layers and layers and layers and layers of information. And ultimately, I think it's about understanding how those, when they're connected, boil up to the entirety of your financial life. It's really simple. How much income do I have? How many assets do I have? And what debt do I have? And once you can really see that, then getting into the particulars of a given decision you might want to make, there's more niche and discrete ways to do that. But I love the education on NerdWallet. I think just reading about stuff in like layman's terms, and especially if you have a DIY perspective, it's a great resource.
Stephany, I actually loved hearing that. I have a thesis on DTI that we're actually building out at HM Bradley. So that really resonated with me. I genuinely believe that if we can educate people about the understanding of how debt to income actually affects you across the board, as any lender would view you, whether it's a trade line for a credit card or whether it's for your mortgage, I think that piece of education has been so willfully neglected by the vast majority of financial institutions, which is one of the pieces of financial literacy that I'm trying to push through HM Bradley. So TBD on when we launch that, but it is forthcoming. Like I said, I think that's the most important aspect that continues to get neglected in the fintech space and financials generally. But loved hearing that. That just continues to confirm something that I really believe in. So being mindful of your time, thank you so much. We also want to make sure everyone knows where they can find you. So where can people find you, Stephany, and also Orem in the internet world?
You can find me at home in my 5-year-old's bedroom, which I eventually painted the walls and converted. So that's where I spend most of my time. But I'm at Steph Kirkpat on Twitter and Instagram. We're at Hello Orem on Twitter, and we're at helloorem.io if you want to just shoot us a note to say hi. So don't be strangers. And if you want to come hang out in my 5-year-old's bedroom, I would love to have you.
Stephany, thank you so much. It is always so fun talking to you and hearing all of your inspirational words of wisdom. I so appreciate you joining us today and cannot thank you enough. So
my pleasure. It was super fun convo. Loved it.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephany. So wonderful meeting you.
Likewise.
This is awesome. I have tons of notes. I say this every time. I'm going to re-listen to this, and I have a lot to learn. So thank you for my education and our listeners.
My pleasure.
Well, I have more notes than I usually do.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I do.
I was wondering if you were going to enjoy this just because you were so like upset about ACHs when you first started exploring banking.
Well, it was scary. I was just like, ugh. Also, what does ACH stand for? Do you know?
Automated clearinghouse.
Automated clearinghouse.
Yes.
There it is. Okay.
Yep.
I was like, I see it all the time. I know what it is, but I didn't know the acronym. Okay. Helpful. Yeah, it's frightening when you're moving big money. Not only do I need to trust a bank, like we joke about dating banks. You really are. You're like dating. You're like dating, and here's all my money and my social security number. I'm like waiting to get catfished. No, I think Stephany is obviously a powerhouse in the industry, and God, her mind, just the way that she's so curious, and she's gone into different industries. She's done all of these things to just kind of keep her on top of her game with the underlying foundation of things are broken, things need to be better, and we need to be better humans for it. So love her.
I love her background. I love her like the things that she provides, and the fact that she's so methodical about like, yes, we need to fix parts of the banking industry, and yes, absolutely, if you want to figure out how to do things with your financial life, especially like doing things that are riskier, like investing in crypto, like here are the steps I would take. Principal foundational aspects of being able to save and figuring out how to utilize your money. I think all of that is so critical to our success. I love talking to people like her because I feel like I get smarter every time I do. And the one thing that I took away from her that I thought was so, so impressive is that I think she talks about the tipping point really being that investment from Inspired Cap, but really from what I heard from her is that everything kind of piled on, and it wasn't just any one thing. It was all of the things in her life that led her to Orem, including her family and her personal life. And I loved hearing about the support that her husband gives her, like just so many things. I just need to chew on this interview a little bit more.
No, I think there's a lot there. I do love the way that she kind of served up. If I were to I decided tomorrow, I woke up and I was like, I want to build a bank. How would I do it? And you could tell her head is so in infrastructure because she's like, here's all the things you need to do before you actually do it. And so I love that. She would be a great partner if we started a bank. I'm just saying. Yeah, I love that. Leading with curiosity too is super important, that I think people get stuck in the confidence, arrogance kind of teeter-totter.
Oh, lead with curiosity. I feel like that is the moment I want to wrap this episode on. That is like a perfect wrap.
Lead with curiosity.
Yeah.
Like whisper. Whisper.
Yeah.
All right, lovey.
All right.
This has been great.
Yeah.
Per usual.
Amazing interview per usual. Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.